Since we got a more intimate crowd today, I think we're going to do a different format, because what I've been coming to realize, that even when I did my tour around the world, a lot of people, especially ones that are not associated with the freedom movement, are completely confused as to what's going on now. They think because they got to take the mask off their face, and because they don't have a vaccine mandate at most jobs, a lot of them still do, by the way, most people don't even know this, but yeah, there's still a lot of people that are out of work because of mandates, but they're all confused about what's going on. So I want to do a question and answer session with everybody here today. You can ask about the tour, you can ask about what's going on, you can ask about what I think is going to happen in the future. And this way, we can start getting a discussion to get everybody back up to speed, and to let everybody learn from the lessons that we learned before, so we don't repeat the same mistakes going forward. So let's get this going. Who has a question? There you go.
Have you been paying attention to your inquiry, and what are your thoughts looking at it so far?
Well, the inquiry, yes, she wants to know about the Public Emergencies Inquiry. And if you guys are not aware, that is the emergency commission that is investigating Trudeau's using the Emergency Act against protesters. And in fact, they contacted me months ago as one of the first people that they wanted to go and testify as part of this commission. They actually contacted me through my lawyer, which was actually really strange. And then my lawyer told me they did this because it's more than likely a whitewash investigation that's not really investigating the government, but wanting to investigate the protesters and trying to get people like me to go there, so we'll say something, hopefully to incriminate ourselves, and then they can try to deal with us like they dealt with everybody else, with freezing bank accounts and all the rest of it. So I was advised not to do it. Well, instead, I made a video and said I knew exactly what they were up to, and I'm more than happy to come there and do my testimony anyway. And that video went pretty viral, and so now that they knew that I knew what was going on and I was going to go there prepared, surprise, surprise, they haven't got back to me. But they have a lot of other people that are going there. So the Public Emergency Commissions, don't expect anything to come of it. It's the government investigating themselves, and we all know how that's going to work out. It's just another like dog and pony show where they're going to justify everything that they did or sweep it under the rug. Well, people that are associated with it cover their ass. Like the head of the RCMP there, he told them, oh, I didn't authorize or ask for this. Meanwhile, Trudeau told everybody that's what he did. So once again, Trudeau was caught in a bold-faced lie on the record, but nothing's going to happen to him. That's a good question, by the way. Next. Yes, sir.
They expect to roll out more mandates when they've discovered SB1.77, which was a cure for every strain of COVID.
It's easy. They'll just pretend like that doesn't work. They'll go outlaw it, just like they did with ivermectin. If you guys haven't noticed, they're already trying to bring the mandates back. They just got rid of them October 1st, and then they started talking about, oh, we're going to maybe need them. Then it was, now we're urging you to put them on. And now the next day it was, we're urging mandates to come back. So we already know what the next step is. And in Canada, because people like to do what they're told, all these wonderful people that took their mask off and walk around and say, I'm never putting a mask back on. As soon as they're told to, 90+% of them are going to put the diaper back on their face. And then you're going to see 10, 20, 30, 40 times the amount of people show up here again, because then they're going to realize there's still a fight going on. The only reason that we even have a semblance of freedom is because everybody actually stood up to themselves for once around the world. Otherwise, we'd still be wearing masks and there'd still be mandates. And now that they got everybody lulled back into complacency, all they need is a little bit of propaganda, like rising cases and overwhelming hospitals, and they'll tell all of those same people that are pretending like they're free to put the mask back on, and you watch how fast they will. You already had Trudeau threatening restrictions if we don't get the jabs. Meanwhile, it's the exact opposite. As soon as you get the jab, that's when all the restrictions will come. If you guys notice, they keep telling you the mantra, the vaccine saved millions of lives, the vaccine saved countless lives. Where's the proof of that? They say it's in their models. Models are things they made up. They can make it say whatever the hell they want, so that doesn't mean shit. Meanwhile, we have over 2 years now almost of people getting the jabs. Some people are up to jab number 6. And when we have some other countries, we didn't use any jabs at all. So which countries did better? We can compare quite quickly. Now that we've all been experimented on, we know that in Canada, according to the government, 80% of us plus took 2 shots at least. Well, Well, we have 37 million people in Canada. How many COVID deaths did we get? 45,000. So let's compare us to a country that didn't vaccinate a lot. Let's try Haiti. Haiti is a third world country, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. 11.4 million people crowded on a little tiny island with the worst healthcare system and virtually no pandemic response. They didn't vaccinate. They have less than 2% of their entire population vaccinated. They didn't have any mandates for masks, any mandates against travel restrictions for people coming in and out of Haiti. And guess how many deaths they had? They have almost 1/3 of our population. And remember, we have 45,000 deaths. And our pandemic response is touted as world-class, world-leading, because we had such high compliance with mandates, masks, jabs, travel restrictions, etc. Well, then how did Haiti only have 857 dead? And we have 45,000 dead. Well, is it just Haiti? We look at Africa. Africa is an entire continent made up of 54 countries. What do they all have in common? Less than 2% vaccinated. Very poor. Healthcare systems in shambles. 1.25 billion people. 255,000 COVID deaths. United States of America, with over 50 states. A very good comparison to Africa, but only 330 million, not 1.25 billion, and somehow over 1 million COVID deaths. So why is it that the populations of the most vaccinated and most restricted countries have exponentially more dead than the countries that did virtually nothing to combat COVID? Obviously, the vaccines didn't help. They're the problem. And that's only taking into account COVID deaths. That doesn't even take into account the economic destruction and the mental health destruction of the population. So it's very easy to prove that lockdowns and the jab did nothing to help anybody, and in fact didn't save millions of lives. It ruined, killed millions of people, and impoverished hundreds of millions, if not more. Next question. Yes, sir.
Hey, Chris. I'm Chris as well. Good to meet you.
Pleasure.
I'm proud to be part of the fringe minority. Prime Minister said bad things about. The question is, are we a minority? Has there been anything to tally how many freedom fighters there are in Canada? Because I believe it's in the millions. Certainly from the truckers, it was in the millions. You know, I mean, the support in the streets, but the support everywhere else. And I think we're losing some power. As long as idiots in Parliament think that we're a fringe minority, they're going to ignore us. But
Well, they know better. The people in politics know we're not a fringe minority. The reality is the vocal freedom fighters are 10 to 15% of the population. So already that's millions and millions of people. The reality is the silent majority, aka virtually everyone you speak to, ask 10 people. Did you get jabbed because, 10 jab people, did you get jabbed because you wanted to? Or did you get jabbed because you felt like you had no choice? Because you were afraid you were going to lose your job or not be able to participate in society, etc. 7 out of 10 of them at least will say they didn't want the jab and they don't want another jab. That's the silent majority. Why were they silent? Because they're the ones that don't have the balls to stand up for themselves. They're the ones that were easily coerced. They were the ones that were fooled, pressured, etc. But now that they're using a different attack, now that they backed off on COVID for the time being, it's going to come back obviously, they went back to the boiling frog. Now they want to just starve you into submission. They can get their digital ID, their digital currency, their universal basic income, as long as you cannot afford to feed yourself. So what are they doing? They're just trying to make everything more expensive. That's why they had a meeting in England when I was there to calculate the next global recession. They're going to combine that with climate change. They're going to combine that with new anti-hate laws and anti-misinformation laws. And they're going to do all that to try to impoverish people and make people to the point where they literally can't survive without the government. So now all that so-called silent majority people, they're going to realize that not only is their compliance throughout of this perpetuated and enabled them to have their rights and freedoms taken away, now their compliance is going to cost them straight from their pocket and straight from the food from their children's mouth. And when it gets to that point, it's pretty hard to pretend like all you got to do is wear a mask and take a jab and everything's going to be okay. they're going to have to realize that they're in this fight, and they're going to have to get vocal. They're going to have to spread awareness. So in doing what the government did, backing off on COVID because we forced them, and switching tactics, and now literally trying to starve people into submission, all they did was give us an avenue where we can unite way more people, because there's no social stigma for people standing up for themselves when they're just trying to feed themselves. It's one thing when we're saying, oh, don't wear the mask, don't take the jab. They call you an anti-mask or anti-vaxxer. What are they going to say when you're saying, stand up for yourself because your food bill just went up 300%? What, you're an anti-fooder? No, no one's going to be afraid to get called bad names for not wanting to pay 5 times for their grocery bill. So they did a very smart thing on their part, because what they basically pivoted, and they just kept going forward with the same strategy, and they got everybody to go back to sleep. But at the same time, that's also only temporary, because 3-4 months from now, when everybody looks at their average bills and see that their housing price, their rent or their mortgage, their gas, their electricity, their natural gas to heat, their food, everything went more expensive. And when that happens month after month after month, you're going to notice within 6 months, 10-20% of the population is all of a sudden going to be supporting a universal basic income. And that's what they're hoping. They're hoping that they can starve the people into submission, and rather than the people revolting like they have every other time in history when they can't feed themselves, they're expecting this generation to be so soft that they'll just download an app, load their facial recognition, their thumbprint, their iris scan, their DNA, and everything else the government asks of them, rather than have to wait in a bread line. That's the plan, and I don't think it's going to work, because people are really upset, even around the world. I got arrested twice on the world tour. The first time was in Ireland, and I could tell it was planned. But even when I was at the station, and I was under arrest, I had police officers come up to me, look me right in the eyes, and say, I'm never wearing a fucking mask again. And that's all the way on the other side of the world. So the sentiment is not just national, it's international. People know what's going on. They know it because of the government. The police over there are not stupid. And they're more vocal than they were here. So that's why they have to change tactics. Because it wasn't just Canada that was standing up. Yeah, we started it with the trucker convoy. We inspired others to do the same, especially the Netherlands and other people. But the sentiment is the same all around the country. People caught on to the scam. People realize the mask isn't helping. People realize the vaccine is hurting. And people realize the lockdowns caused a lot more problems for them and their family than COVID ever did. Yes, sir?
Chris, I doubt very much that there's anyone here that would agree that our government is working in our best interest. Unfortunately, when I watch the freedom movement, I have not heard anybody talking up the need for some kind of a change in the way we are governed, in a way to bring governance down to the level of the people. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Why are we not hearing that?
Because I've been trying to get that through everybody's head since day one. But trying to tell Canadians your vote doesn't matter is like trying to tell a Canadian to take the mask off or tell them that the jab is going to hurt them. They will not listen. And in COVID, they were only brainwashed for months to end up like that. This is brainwashing that's happened through generations. Before kids are even able to vote, their parents are telling them how important it is to vote. Their school's telling them how important it is to vote. And the voting is the scam. Because then you don't get to really choose who to vote for. They tell you who you can vote for. So if I give you a choice for lunch between a shit sandwich and a shit sandwich on whole wheat, which one are you going to choose? And then if you're one of the people that says, sorry, I don't want a shit sandwich, so I'm not going to choose either. Oh, well, then you have no right to complain about the shit sandwich. Thanks, I don't need the right to complain because I already know it's a shit sandwich and I don't want to eat it. Thank you very much. But you try to tell a Canadian their vote doesn't matter, they get offended. This is Canada! My vote means everything! Oh, okay, then how did we get to where we are? Oh, because you all voted for the wrong person. Oh, okay, who was the right person? Did you see a difference between conservative Ontario, which was open for business? That was the piece of fat garbage's campaign slogan. And they're just as locked down and as or worse than any other liberal one. So there's no difference. Did you see O'Toole any different than Trudeau? No. And the only reason they put Poilievre in is because the only person that people hated more than Trudeau was O'Toole. That's it. And he looked like everybody just said he's no different than Trudeau. And Pierre Poilievre is no different than Trudeau, except he decided he supported the trucker convoy. When the polls showed him that the majority of conservatives support the trucker convoy, all of a sudden, Pierre Poilievre's picture just disappeared off the World Economic Forum website, and he became a freedom fighter overnight. And he showed up in Ottawa, and he supported the convoy, and like that, he was the new leader of the Conservatives. If people don't understand the game, by this point, they're screwed.
Thanks
like
for
you
that.
said, you cannot try to change the system from within. You have to create a new system that makes the old system obsolete. And in order to do that, we have to get enough people to not comply with the old system. If you can get the vast majority of people to simply not vote, imagine out of 37 million people, we have about 20 million or something that can vote. Imagine they only got like 1 million people that voted. And the rest of Canada was like, I'm not voting because these people are garbage. And then they wouldn't have a government. That would cause real change. That would cause discussion as to why they're mishandling all our spending. Why we're hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in debt. Why they're sending billions and billions and billions to Ukraine when we have the highest growing homeless population in the entire world and things like that. Then we can have real conversations. But we don't get those conversations. All we get is, you get to choose between liberal or conservative. And for you people that really love communism, you can choose the NDP. And for you people that really wanted to have a freedom candidate, but you don't really have one, you can choose Maxime Bernier because he says the right things. That's it. The entire movement was designed, first of all, the PPC was designed to try to co-opt the freedom movement. Then when the freedom movement got too popular, they changed it to the Conservative Party, if you notice. Conservatives were not about the freedom movement at all. At all. They voted for every single regulation to keep everything going, to keep all the powers for themselves, to keep all the emergencies in place, until it got mass support from the Canadian public. Then all of a sudden, the Conservatives were the party of the Freedom Convoy. And you had them all standing up, and they all started talking bad about the Liberals. Now they're even talking bad about Dr. Tam. For the last 2 years, the Conservatives were literally kissing his, not hers, his ass. And now they're telling you how that it needs to be fired. But the only thing we can do as people at this point is to hold these pieces of garbage accountable. It has to be beyond them just resigning and taking the millions and millions of dollars they got paid to destroy everybody and just disappear into the night. No, these people need to be charged. There need to be consequences, and we need to introduce legislation to prevent this type of thing from ever happening again. We need to put safeguards in place to protect us from the government. Imagine that. That's what needs to be done. But they ain't going to get a wolf in sheep's clothing to look after the chickens, I'll tell you that right now.
So Chris, just to build on that.
Yes, sir.
Should the freedom movement be advocating for a different system, such as Von Lyon's power shift?
The problem with that is, unless you have the mass number of people to support it, it's like any other governing system. You don't have the authority to enforce it, you don't have the power. And that's what they've been banging on. Everything they did was illegal.
Yes.
We know that. But guess what? They had the money, and they had the power, and they had the friggin' backup to enforce it. So they made it happen. And only a few people like me and others stood up to try to show people that this is not real. This will not hold up in court. So you do need to fight back. But that doesn't stop them from trying to do it. I already told everybody, if the only way they could change this country with voting, and I said it half jokingly but I was dead serious at the same time, was to make me a leader of the PPC. Because I was shown by political strategists in the United States who wouldn't even tell me where he was from or his name because he was that afraid. But he told me that the best political strategist companies in North America, which are the top in the world, they have special artificial intelligence software that runs elections. And they run weird mock elections like The Rock versus Donald Trump, or The Rock versus Joe Biden. And they ran an election of me versus Justin Trudeau. And guess what happened? I won the first supermajority in the history of Canada. Yeah. And they explained how it happened. I said, how is that even possible? He goes, it's very simple. He's like, you took from every single major political party, so you took some of the conservatives, some of the liberal, little NDP, etc. He's like, but you know what you did that no other political candidate in the history of mankind has done? I'm like, no, what's that? He's like, you engaged the non-voter. People like me. I'm 39 years old. I've never voted in my life. Why? Because I never put a candidate in front of me that looked like they deserved my vote. And guess what? there's more people in Canada that don't vote than all the other parties combined. So in this mock election, when I was actually created as a political candidate, the vast majority of the people that never voted before in their life got off their ass for the first time, voted, and I ended up winning a supermajority to the point where I would be able to create a constitutional convention and totally ratify the Charter of Rights into a document more like the U.S. Constitution and updated for 2022 to keep our safeguards in place, including our right to bear arms and everything else that they're trying to take away from us. So that is really the only way I saw us change the country. And how could that happen? It's pretty simple. The PPC party is run by Maxime Bernier right now. They made about $1 million last election campaign, which in the grand scheme of things for elections is absolutely nothing. So he did everything he could. He got the party, he became the leader of the party, he filled the ridings all around the country, and he ran twice. And he couldn't even win his own seat or one seat for the rest of the party. And he didn't have the money to do it. But if I was put in charge of that party and I actually became a politician and they voted and made me the head of the PPC, we would get exponentially more money coming in and we would get exponentially more influence. And I'd be the first candidate in the history of candidates that would actually go to each individual 300 plus ridings around the country. Just like I drive 24 hours a day to come here, we would drive 24 hours a day and make sure each one of our candidates gets the support and financial support and every other kind of support they need to win their seat. So we would actually have an effective campaign, and we would win that supermajority, and then we could change the constitution of the country to limit the powers of government, and then we could start using our money in much smarter ways, like renewable energy, creating water desalination plants on our oceans to pump into our Great Lakes, because we already sell that water to China and other countries, depleting our own natural resources, which we could be replenishing. But instead, we're spending billions of dollars in Ukraine so they can blow each other up. Or we could be building our own oil refineries, so rather than getting all our oil, sending it down to the States so they could turn it into gas and sell it back to us at 3 times the price, so we pay quadruple what they pay down there. Imagine if your gas prices were like 30 cents instead of $2, which they should be. Imagine all the extra money that would go back into the economy. Imagine all the extra jobs that could create, how a GDP would go up. Canada could have the highest standard of living with the lowest cost of living anywhere in the world with our resources, our low population, and our gigantic land mass. It is being mismanaged worse than the Quickie Mart in Simpsons. And they're doing it on purpose. Yes, ma'am.
So my question was actually, where do we go from here? What is our next step? I think you guys kind of covered that. So why don't you do it? Just do it.
If I had the support, and I said this to a bunch of the rich families, because I don't know if you guys know this, Trudeau went to Alberta about 2 months ago now, 2.5 months ago, with Chrystia Freeland, and a viral video came out of a guy screaming at Chrystia Freeland inside a building and basically kicking her out. But nobody asked why they were there. And I truly believe that viral video was created as a distraction just to get people to not talk about why they were there. Does anybody know what they were doing in Alberta?
Caribou Reserve.
The Caribou Safety Zone. So in Alberta, there's a little belt running through the center they call the Caribou Safety Zone. It's protected, and it allows the caribou to go back and forth. This also happens to be the most oil, mineral-rich part of Alberta, surrounded by private oil refineries, private oil extraction, private mining, private farming, some of the most fertile and valuable land in all of Canada. So guess what they did? They went over there, and under the guise of climate change and protecting the caribou, they expanded that caribou lane over 300%. So now all the land that's in that newly protected zone becomes government property. So they literally just robbed some of the wealthiest families in the country, millions and millions of dollars. So I made a video and I told these people how to protect their property with allodial title, which is a process that you can do here in Canada and the States on certain properties that makes it impossible for the government to literally take it from you. So when I put that message out, I got literally hundreds and hundreds of really wealthy families messaging me, and I said, you guys have generational wealth. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And you guys are worried about supporting someone like me who would need a few $1 million to go to the PPC and say, Maxime Bernier raised an entire $1 million for your whole election cycle. here's a couple $1 million if you make me the leader of the party, and there'll probably be 20 to 50 to 100 more million coming. We would get made like that. So I reached out to these families and I said, you guys can spend a few million now as an insurance policy, or the government's going to come and take tens of millions, if not more, from you later. And I got a lot of responses, a lot, but I still haven't seen anybody put their money where their mouth is. And I don't want them to give me the money. I want them to put it into an escrow fund that the PPC gets to pull from if they made me the leader, so we could use it to get an election going, a real one, an actual one that could provide real change. That is the quickest and easiest way to end this. The other way is to get everybody not to comply, get everybody not to pay their bills, and that's what I did in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, they're trying to starve them to death by shutting down the food supply with environmental controls, just like they're doing here, and at the same time, they're targeting individual businesses with energy costs. If they want to close your business down, the government pretty much owns the energy company over there. They'll just make your energy bill 10 times as much the next month. And I actually saw it with my own eyes. A business sent me their bill. It was between 3,700 to 4,700 euros every month for the last 12 months. And then 1 month after that, it jumped to over 45,000 euro. So obviously they couldn't pay their bill. Obviously they had to close down their business. So one of the features of my speech in the Netherlands was the mass civil disobedience of government-owned things like the energy. And that's why we always tell people how dangerous it is to nationalize these things. And if they're privately owned, there's laws in place for price gouging and all of this. When they're owned by the government gets to do whatever the hell they want, just like there. But also when they're owned by the government, mass civil disobedience can solve the problem. So I literally went on stage and told everybody to do what I'm about to do, and I burnt their energy bill. It actually went on the mainstream media there. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of mass civil disobedience. And they're afraid of having a candidate like me in the Netherlands. And they do have a candidate like me in the Netherlands, and they kicked him right out of Parliament. And they kicked his second in command out of Parliament. And whenever he tries to speak in Parliament, they basically just get up and walk out because they don't want to give him a voice because he calls them out on all the bullshit. So there are people in place around the world that are challenging the system from within. And it does have to be done. I'm the one that says more than anything, you cannot change things with politics. However, in this case, I probably could, because there'd be so many people involved in the election, more than ever before in human history, that it would be not just a national thing, it would be international. It would be an international achievement that no one's ever been able to compete, and we could literally reshape the country any way we want. I could do that, but like I said, most people, they would, if I did it with like a GoFundMe, the government would declare something. If I did, any type of way I would do it, I would love to do it. If I had people to help me, if everybody helped and everybody put it, and like I said, I wouldn't want the money, I'd want it in an escrow that I can't even touch until I become the leader of that party, and then any money that gets extracted from that escrow will have to go through the party, would have to go through checks and balances. I wouldn't want $1 coming to me. So if people did help